I... I love you. I couldn't imagine going on without you. I'm ready. I'm ready. I never believed in ghosts. Nothing could stay hidden for that long. I mean, how could one not have been recorded by now? By someone credible or on better recording equipment than a cell phone from 2010. So, Loser's Sleep didn't creep me out. Even though everyone claimed it was haunted and dangerous, there wasn't an actual reason to think that. I'm from Sherman, Vermont, a ghost town about 45 minutes out from Montpelier. You've probably never heard of it. You could drive through the entire town in 10 minutes. We had a humble population of about 4,000 and not a single notable thing to draw in tourists. The only aspect of Sherman you might have heard about is Loser's Sleep. On the surface, it wasn't much to talk about. Just a tall hill in the woods overlooking the White River. It was pretty steep, about 100 feet over the river, with a scenic waterfall off to the west, not too close to be disruptively loud, but not too far to be unnoticed. It was a nice place to go picnicking, bring a date, hell, maybe even propose. Except for one thing: the suicides. Ever since the 1600s, Loser's Sleep was infamous for the mysterious number of suicides that took place there. It all started during colonial expansion, when a large group of Abenaki Indians jumped off the hilltop into the river instead of being forced out of their homeland. The story goes that since then, it's been cursed. No one really knows if that actually happened or not, and the same goes for some of the other older suicide tales, but indisputably, in October of 1970, a boy by the name of Ricardo Elias was found dead at the base of the river. He was a draft dodger on his unholy pilgrimage to Canada who got cornered by police less than 100 miles from the border. Came all the way from Florida too, feeling like his only options left were prison or even worse, the war in Vietnam. He found himself at Loser's Sleep, where he took the plunge. Then, again in 1986, A boy named Mike Merkel ended it all on the same fateful hilltop. There's not a lot known about his story, more or less. He was a loner that was tired of his life. Then, in 2008, just about 10 years ago, a girl jumped too. Though her body was never found, she was known for visiting the Leap a lot, and it was the last place she was headed to before her disappearance. Needless to say, the uncanny number of suicides that took place there made it a hotspot for ghost stories and paranormal rumors. The idea was that people with no hope left, completely out of options, losers, came there to kiss this cruel world goodbye, but their spirit became tethered to the place and would push you off the ledge if you got too close. But, like I said, I never believed in ghosts. In fact, the reputation the place had benefited me greatly, because I could come out there all by myself with no threat of having to deal with anybody else. I came out there all the time to sit in the grass, listen to the waterfall, and write. Whether it be poems, stories, personal prose, it didn't matter. When I was there, I always had something to write. And it wasn't like I had anything better to do. I worked at a grocery store called Shaw's, but since most of the employees were breadwinners, they got most of the hours. I was lucky to work 3 shifts a week. Both my parents worked all day and weren't the most congenial when they were around. And my only friend was Allyanne, if you could even call her that. Allyanne and I had been friends ever since we were in preschool. She had light brown hair and these big green eyes. Her parents worked a lot, like mine, and so we were always left at aftercare together after school. We were typically the last 2 kids to get picked up. Naturally, we became pretty good friends because of it. Back then, and until around 6th grade, both of us were ignored by everybody else. We had the same classmates every year because there were only 3 schools in town: a preschool, an elementary through middle, and a high school. There were 26 of us back then, and with the loss of 2 students who moved away, and the addition of 1 student who moved to Sherman from 1 county over, the group stayed the exact same throughout every year. Allyanne and I were typically regarded as weird, and so we were left alone. But when 6th grade hit, the wonderful process that is puberty took place, and Allyanne got hot. To me, she was always pretty, but the breasts and makeup sold everybody else on it. And sure enough, as is the natural order of things, when she became hot, I was ignored. The dynamic duo was no more, at least beneath the surface. We still talked a lot, and she hung out with me on occasion, but the friendship we used to have, that was gone. She was assimilated into the popular crowd and became more and more like them every year until we really didn't have anything in common anymore. Typically, us talking was her venting to me about Scott, the douchebag I mentioned who moved into Sherman our junior year. He was attractive and new, and thus became the target of all the girls who were sick of the same old. All Allyanne wanted these days was to get Scott's attention, and that was about the only thing that crossed her mind, I think. At least, that's all she cared to tell me about. So, in my lonesome, my writing habit became more and more pervasive. And though I had the house to myself most of the time, I didn't like the vibe there. Being at home reminded me of getting snaps from Allyanne, whining about Scott not looking at her enough across the bonfire in Gage's backyard, and hearing my parents argue. It was hard to find inspiration there. And so on my 17th birthday, which I spent alone. Because Allyanne was busy at a party, I decided the only place in town I hadn't seen a trillion times was Loser's Lane. Not believing in ghosts made it pretty easy to convince myself to visit. It was about a 20-minute drive from my house, and then a 20-minute walk from the parking grounds. You lost reception about a minute after walking into the woods, and that's the best part. Absolutely no distractions. No predictable messages from Allyanne, no glaring at my phone and wishing I'd get a notification because I knew none of them were coming out there. It became my favorite place in town, and before long, I was going out there just about every afternoon I wasn't working, where I'd sit in the grass against a tree and write. But my routine of resting there and enjoying nature in my lonesome eventually came to an end. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was a warm Vermont day in late April, about 60 degrees, and I just gotten out of my 7th period class, statistics. I was a senior with only a month and a half of school left, and with my classes mostly finished, I didn't have much homework to juggle with writing anymore. I climbed into my car, a red 2001 Honda Accord. It was ugly and nothing to brag about, but I bought it in full and it got me where I needed to go. Just as I shut the car door, my phone vibrated softly. I looked down and saw exactly what I knew was coming. A snap from Allyanne. I opened it dully.
He's talking to Abby again.
Oh, sorry.
Why Abby? Seriously.
I don't know. She sent something back, but I didn't care to look at it. I looked into the rearview mirror, meeting my blue eyes in the reflection, my short brown hair underneath a blue beanie. No one was behind me, so I backed out slowly. I felt my phone vibrate again, then again. I drove to the stop sign, then opened the messages.
She's not even pretty, like at all. Sam.
Ollie, I'm driving.
Oh.
I put the phone down, then progressed through the stop sign, cringing at how dull she was. Sometimes, I couldn't help but to think about when we were kids, how much fun we used to have. She was honestly a completely different person. That Allyanne was gone, most likely forever. Sometimes, I felt the only reason I even still talked to her was because I had literally no one else to talk to, and she was preferable to nothing. My car didn't have Bluetooth or even a working auxiliary port, and the radio stations in town sucked, so I listened to CDs. I put in the White Album, my favorite Beatles album that I listened to enough to drive Allyanne crazy, and drove up the winding road toward Loser's Lane. The drive was peaceful, as usual. The trees were just getting their leaves back and the forest was becoming alive again. The snow was gone and the animals were coming back out, allowing the sight of an occasional wood thrush fluttering by or a squirrel rummaging for food. When I got to the parking grounds, I left my phone in the car per usual, as taking it into the woods was pointless anyway, and began my trek through the woods to the leap. I wore a maroon windbreaker, blue jeans, boots, and my blue beanie, my journal in hand. At last, I stepped through the clearing, emerging into the forbidden beauty that was Loser's Lane. The sight never grew old. I sighed of relief, taking in the serene majesty of the lookout. Beyond the grassy hilltop, dotted sparingly with trees, was the river, humming gently 100 feet below. All around the river, on either side was a soft dirt bank, followed by tall trees swaying gently in the cool and nippy breeze. Around the river on all sides was mostly uncharted wilderness, with only a trail or two visible from my perch. To the west, on my left, was the waterfall, maybe 15 feet shorter than the lake. On top of the waterfall was more forest. If I climbed the tree I usually sat beneath, I could make out the water tower of Clover, the next town over to the north. But today, I leaned against a tree, taking out my journal. I thumbed through the pages, finally reaching a blank one. I withdrew a black pen from my jacket pocket, examining the page. I shut my eyes and let my soul do the talking. Scott. Why Scott? I don't get it, Ollie. All you ever do is talk about Scott. What happened to us hanging out as children? Pushing each other on the swing at aftercare. Biking around the town on Saturdays and going fishing after church. It ate at me. I was jaded to her ignoring me, but once in a while, it hurt me again. Scott. What an asshole. He doesn't care about you or Abby or anyone. And you know it too. Why do you just settle for that, Ollie? I sighed and opened my journal. I stared at the empty page for a while, pressing the back of my pen into the corner of my lip, waiting for some divine inspiration to come. But it never did. That was fine. Sometimes it didn't. I resigned myself to just taking in the beauty of the leap again. And that's when something completely unforeseeable happened. For the first time ever, having frequented this place ever since my 17th birthday, I heard someone coming through the trees. My heart froze, and I jumped up, startled by the sound. And then, my mind was blown even more. A girl came stepping out of the tree line with long flowing blonde hair that glowed in the sunlight, and vibrant turquoise eyes, an intoxicating swirl of sky blue and seafoam green. On her face was a slight spattering of pale freckles, and she had sharp, fox-like features. She wore a red and white flannel shirt unbuttoned over the top of her chest, and underneath, she wore a white tank top. She wore skinny jeans as well. She gasped, startled to see me. Hey. I waved speechlessly.
Hi.
She waved back, starting to smile.
Sorry. I didn't mean to intrude on you.
No, you're fine. I smiled back. Wow. I've literally never seen another person up here before.
Yeah, me neither.
She laughed. I was confused by that. Because I came up here all the time, and if she came out here with any relative frequency, I'd have had to have seen her by now. But I knew it would only make me sound creepy to point that out. So, what brings you up here? Oh, and I'm Sam.
Leona.
She smiled congenially.
And honestly, I just come out here to sing and play guitar, because I know it's a private place and no one's listening.
I hadn't even noticed the guitar case in her hand. Oh, cool. Sorry if I'm ruining your privacy. I scratched the back of my head, but she replied,
No, you're not. Not at all. I mean, I'm still just shocked to see someone here.
Sorry if this is weird, but like how often do you come out here? Because I come here more often than I like to admit, and I've never seen you.
I mean, I don't come out here all the time. Probably once or twice a month. But still, I was pretty sure I was the only person that wasn't too afraid to visit this place.
Nah, I don't believe in ghosts. I shrugged.
Me neither.
She laughed dryly. What shocked me even more than seeing her here was that I'd never seen her before. She certainly couldn't be from Sherman, unless she was homeschooled and locked in her parents' basement. Are you from Sherman? I've never seen you around.
No, I'm from Clover.
Wow, that's a bit of a drive.
Yeah, that's why I don't come out here more. But it's worth the drive. Sucks this place has such a bad reputation. It's gorgeous.
Agreed. I nodded.
Well, you mentioned you came out here a lot, but you didn't tell me why.
She inquired with a curious smile.
So, what's your reason for coming out to Loser's Leap?
I felt awkward admitting it. I mean, I just come out here to write.
Write? Write what?
All kinds of stuff. Stories, prose, poems. Mostly poems.
Oh, neat.
She grinned excitedly, and my heart fluttered at the sight.
Let me read one.
Only if you play me a song first.
Ah, a trade you're proposing then.
She cut her eyes at me challengingly.
Well, I accept your offer. I'm not that good, though.
She confessed with rosy cheeks, and once again, my heart soared. I doubt that. I was kidding, though. You don't really have to.
No, it's cool.
She assured, walking over to a rock and sitting on it before opening her case and pulling out a dark brown acoustic guitar. She took a deep breath, and her fingers stroked the strings. I don't mean to sound cliche, but when she started to sing, it completely captivated me. I mean, it was unlike anything I've ever felt. I sort of just stared off into space, taking it all in, feeling the sunlight on my skin, the waterfall and river babbling soothingly in the background. I was totally lost in the moment. Her timbre was high and light, but womanly. At some parts of the song, her voice would get soft and airy, and at other parts, she sang powerfully and loud. Her emotion saturated the music, giving me goosebumps. It was a hell of a performance to whip out for a total stranger, but her choice of such a brazen first impression totally paid off. I was completely dumbfounded and couldn't hope to hide it on my face. When she finished her singing, she gently ended the song with a little more guitar playing. Then, she smiled at me nervously. All I could feel at that moment was limerence.
Oh no.
She giggled.
What's with the baffled look? Was it bad?
No. I shook my head incessantly, still trying to process what I just heard. Not at all. Just, wow. It was absolutely phenomenal, like I was in a trance.
Aww.
She shrank back, becoming noticeably embarrassed.
No, it wasn't.
What do you mean? That was incredible, Leona. I mean, I felt like I was high or something. What was that song called?
I Know, by Fiona Apple. It's supposed to be for a piano, but I think it sounds all right on the guitar.
All right. Leona, that's literally the prettiest thing I've ever heard.
Okay.
She blushed.
Your turn. Let's see a poem, Sam.
Well, see, that's where you're lucky. With singing, you could just do it, and if it's good, anyone can tell. It can be about anything really, but if it sounds nice, it's something you can share. With good writing, I don't know, it's just different. Good poems are deep, and it's weird just sharing that, you know?
Oh, I see. Not upholding your end of the deal.
She clicked her tongue.
Well, don't sweat it.
No, I scratched my head awkwardly. I said I'd show you a poem I wrote. Well, do you want to hear this stupid poem I wrote about a sock my junior year of high school. I was trying to stay awake in class and just jotted it down.
Wow. I play that for you, and you read me a poem about a sock.
She teased.
No.
I laughed, embarrassed.
I'm kidding.
She grinned.
Yes. Let's hear it, Sam.
Right. Well, it's quite duly titled Sock. Silently perching atop the shelf, lucidly worn and torn, bequeaths to me a subtle help, foot comfort in the morn. Stupid, right?
Oh my God.
She laughed.
Wow. I mean, it sounds good though. Solid meter, well executed slant rhyme.
Well, thanks. I grinned, not expecting her to look that deeply at it. And the rest of the day, all the way until sunset, we just sat around and talked. She played guitar and sang a little more, and when I warmed up to her enough, I showed her an actual poem or two. When it was almost dark, we agreed it was time to get going. So, Leona, am I gonna get to see you again? She seemed to be thinking about it for a moment.
May 5th.
She winked at me.
Be here.
Sounds good. I smiled back, more excited than I allowed my countenance to show. And with that, we parted ways. She said there was another parking spot on the other side of the leap, closer to Clover, and that's where her car was, so I didn't get to walk back with her to the parking grounds. When I got back to my car, I sat in the driver's seat. It was dark now, but the moon was high in the sky over the lush wilderness. The weather had dropped to about 40 degrees, and I turned the heat on. As Leona's face came to mind again, my heart pounded. Who was that? I was floored. Where'd she come from? I mean, wow. I can't believe that happened. I drove home listening to the country station, which I usually didn't do. But tonight, I felt upbeat enough for it.
With every step, I feel I can fly. Your love is a breeze, gentle and kind.
When I got home, it was just past 8 o'clock. My parents weren't home yet, which was no surprise. I went into the kitchen and heated up chicken and rice. Then I sat at the table, taking out my phone. I had a couple messages from Allyanne.
Did you see Scott's story? She's all over him. Did you do Doc Pinkman's homework yet? Sam!
Allyanne, can I call you? She read the message, and within 2 minutes, my phone was ringing. Hey, I greeted with an enthusiasm she didn't hear much of these days.
Whoa, you're cheery.
Her smooth, alto voice came over the phone. You won't believe this. You will not believe this, Allie.
What? What?
She sounded annoyed by my high-strung tone. I went to Loser's Leap today, like usual, but for the first time ever, I ran into somebody up there.
Was it a ghost?
No, it was a girl. A gorgeous girl.
A girl? You met a girl up at Loser's Leap?
Yeah, her name was Leona. I plugged in my headphones, then sat down, cutting through the chicken breast with my knife and fork. Allie, she was the prettiest girl I've ever seen in my entire life. Wavy blonde hair, these glowing turquoise eyes, and she could sing. Allie was quiet for a moment.
Kinda weird you met her up there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've never met anyone there before. I already said that, but that's not the point. I did meet her.
You think she's up to something? I don't know why else she'd be up there.
I rolled my eyes. No, Allie. She was up there to play guitar by herself. Just like I go up there to write by myself. I go up there a lot and I'm not up to this something.
But you said she was hot, right?
Well, I guess, yeah. So?
So I mean, like, not to sound rude, but you going up there makes sense. But why would she? If she's so hot like you say.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Come on, you know what I mean, Sam.
That it makes sense for a loser like me to sit out there alone, but not someone that's attractive.
Okay, don't make it sound like that.
How else did you mean it?
Look, just chill, okay? Sam, all I meant was you're not necessarily Mr. Popular. You've told me word for word you go up there a lot because you have nothing better to do. Well, if she's from around here and pretty, I'm sure she's driving all the boys crazy. She probably has a lot to do. So why's she up on Loser's Leap? Where the loners go? I don't know, it just doesn't add up.
She went up there to play guitar. She wanted a place to be alone to practice. It isn't complicated.
I guess.
I sat there for a moment. Why couldn't she just be happy for me? Every single time I talked to her, all she did was argue with me or make me sound dumb. I mean, what was even the point of speaking to her? I never felt fulfilled or happy. I never felt like I was talking to a friend. After spending just one afternoon with Leona, I already felt closer to her than I did with Allyanne in years. You know what, Allie? I think I gotta go.
Aw, come on, Sam.
She replied, but I responded. Every time I tell you any good news, it's like you just try to downplay it and make it sound stupid. Well, it sucks you can't be happy for your friend when I found someone I actually enjoy talking to. She was silent for a second.
You don't enjoy talking to me?
I paused. No, not really. All you ever talk about is Scott. I'm tired of it. I already told you Scott is a douchebag that doesn't deserve the unconditional kindness you give him. But you never listen. You let him walk all over you again and again and again, and then come crying to me like it's the first time it happened. All you ever have to say is Scott this and Scott that. I don't care about Scott. I don't want to hear about Scott. If I wanted to know that much about Scott, I'd talk to him. You and I haven't had one real conversation since the 6th grade. To my shock, I thought I could hear sniffling.
Oh. Well, if that's how you feel, then I guess I gotta go too.
Come on, Allie. Don't make it out like this is my fault.
Whatever, Sam. Glad you found somebody you like talking to.
She hung up on me. I sat there, feeling mixed emotions. Maybe what I said was harsh. There was probably a more tactful way I could have gotten it off my chest. But then again, who was I, sitting there feeling guilty? Besides being a little rude, I didn't do anything wrong. I had every right to feel how I did. If Allyanne cared about me, I sure as hell couldn't tell. She never supported me, never thanked me, never acknowledged our friendship. She treated me like a bedroom drywall, something she could vent to before walking away and shutting the lights off. And I was sick of it. I was so used to it, I didn't even realize how bad of a friend she was. But talking to Leona made me realize it. I felt happier and more alive in those couple of hours than I felt since I was 12 years old. And sure enough, over the next couple of days, I didn't talk with Allyanne at all. I saw her around school and we didn't really acknowledge one another. And guess what? My life was no different. In fact, it even sort of felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I mean, don't get me wrong. I missed her by instinct. But then I tell myself that the Allyanne I was missing had been gone for years. The day I met Leona was April 26, and I counted down the days until May 5th. As excited as I was, though, some part of me just felt that disappointment was inevitable. That I sit out there all day waiting for her and she'd never show. Even worse was that May 5th was a Saturday. So I really had no idea when she planned on showing up. I spent my days either dreaming of Leona at work or sitting out at the Leap and thinking about her. Finally, May 5th arrived. I won't lie. I woke up that morning in a cold sweat. As much as I wanted to believe she'd show, somehow, deep inside, I just knew she wasn't going to come. I tried to imagine her stepping into the clearing, seeing her beautiful eyes again, hearing her intoxicating voice. But all I could envision was the hours ticking by, waiting in the hot seat for her to arrive, and finally sulking away back to my car at dusk, alone, and disappointed like always. I got to the Leap around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I brought a basket with some sandwiches and fruit and 2 bottles of sweet tea. It might have been a bit much, but that first impression she chose to make really stuck with me. I figured I'd be brazen too. I leaned against a tree, taking out my pocket knife that never left my side, cutting up an apple and eating it casually. When I finished, I added more to a story I was working on. Then around 3 o'clock, my writing was interrupted. Against all odds, I heard someone walking up the hill. My palms were clammy and my heart raced. I could barely breathe, staring in the direction of the sound. She stepped out of the trees. I met her hypnotic turquoise eyes, her soft, smiling pink lips, her sun-kissed face. Today, she wore a pink flannel and once again carried her guitar case.
Hey, Sam.
She smiled. Hey, Leona. I grinned. My entire body was alight with thrill and relief. She came over and sat next to me, and I breathed in her perfume, withdrawing an ecstatic sigh. So, I brought us some lunch. She smiled, opening the picnic basket. I got sandwiches and fruit. There are ham and cheese, turkey with mayo, and peanut butter and jelly. And then some apples and bananas.
Aw, Sam.
She smiled at me.
You brought me lunch?
Yeah. And I stuck my hand in the basket. Here. I handed her a bottle of sweet tea. Hope you like sweet tea.
This is so thoughtful.
Really? It was nothing. We spent the day together, talking, laughing, telling one another all about our lives. I told her about Allyanne, how we'd been inseparable from preschool until 6th grade, and then how she became popular and started to write me off. I even told her about the fight we got into a little over a week ago, and how we hadn't talked since. I told her about my parents, how they were mostly never around, and how I spent my time either working at Shaw's with people twice my age or writing at Loser Sleep. She told me that Clover was a lot like Sherman, with just a slightly bigger population of 6,000 and a similar situation with only one high school in town. She told me that she was decently popular, but she didn't really like any of her classmates. She said they were all fake, with materialistic priorities, and she had no one to really talk to, at least beyond the surface level. She said that guys were all over her, treating her like some trophy they were all competing to obtain, but that none of them actually took the time to just sit down and get to know her. She said her home situation was a lot like mine. She was also an only child, and her family was mostly never around. But her father was Clover's very own chief of police, and he could be really controlling, which added a lot of stress to her life. Still, the more we talked, the more I realized our lives were pretty similar. She said she started playing guitar and singing when she was 10, and it was something for her to do when she was bored and alone at home. At first, I wondered if she could really relate to the loneliness. Maybe she didn't spend a lot of time with people, but unlike me, it was her choice. She was swimming in attention, invited to parties, approached by classmates. She didn't have to spend a single weekend alone if she didn't want to. But the more she explained it, the more I realized just how unfulfilling her situation was too. She was enveloped by people that didn't really care about her, just wanted her for her looks, and no one tried or cared to understand her. I began to really sympathize with her. That had to be isolating in its own way. We stayed out there until dark. This time, before she left, she did something that surprised me.
Well, Sam,
She smiled at me.
it was fun. Until next time.
May 13th. I nodded. Can't wait. She looked at me for a moment. She embraced me. Her soft arms wrapped around me, and I breathed in her scent, feeling her chest pressed against mine. I was paralyzed with butterflies.
Thanks for getting to know me, Sam.
She whispered softly, her warm breath trickling into my ear. Of course, Leona, I whispered back, awe-stricken. She leaned back and then softly kissed my cheek. She looked immediately embarrassed about it, chortling with rosy cheeks as I stared at her in wordless bewilderment, probably looking like a complete and utter idiot. Then she turned, walking off into the woods.
Next Sunday.
She called again. Next Sunday, I called back, my heart firing on all cylinders. Have a nice night, Sam. The old lady departed, walking off to her car. You too, ma'am. I called back, standing behind the cash register. It was Saturday, May 12th, a week from when I last seen Leona. I was on the closing shift at Shaw's and couldn't wait to get off work. All night, all I could think about was Leona. Tomorrow, I was determined to get her number. Then we could talk all the time. I stared at my watch. 8:52 p.m. Just 8 more minutes and I could start the closing procedures. Then, to my surprise, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. I scanned the area for my manager, Luther. Ascertaining he was nowhere in sight, I pulled out my phone, wondering who on earth had sent me a message. It was a Snapchat message from Allyanne. Wow, I thought, how damn bizarre. We hadn't spoken at all since the phone call. It had been 3 weeks. At around 10 o'clock, I finally clocked out and walked through the chilly night to my red Accord in the starlit parking lot. I climbed inside, turned the heat on, then tapped the message, surprised by how nervous I was to do so.
Sam, I miss you.
This shocked me. I couldn't believe she'd even noticed me gone. Hey, Ellie, I miss you too. I went to shift the gear to drive, but she already responded. Surprised, I read the next message.
Can we hang out tomorrow? It's been way too long.
Sorry, Allie. I'm meeting Leona tomorrow. Maybe Monday?
Oh, all right, sure.
Hey, wanna call tonight?
Okay.
I drove home. At last, I slid out of my work clothes. I got a hot shower, then crawled into bed, lying beneath the warm covers. I called Allyanne, and for the first time in weeks, I heard her voice outside of her Snapchat story.
Hey, Sam.
Allie, I smiled, and it actually brought me a lot of comfort to hear from her again. I've missed you.
You too, asshole. Making me message you first?
Yeah, sorry. So, how's life been, Allie?
Not much to talk about, but some good news.
Yeah?
I gave up on Scott.
What? You did?
Yeah, you were right, Sam. Scott is an asshole. He really is. The other night, I found him with Elise at Jack's party in his parents' bedroom. Not even Abby.
Wow. Sounds like Scott.
Yeah, so, how's everything going for you? And how are things with Leona?
It's going great. Honestly, things are going great for me. I know I've only hung out with her twice, but when I'm with her, I just feel understood. I don't know. It's really something. I can't wait to see her tomorrow. I basically spent all my time just sitting around and looking forward to the next time I see her.
Wow. She's really something, huh?
Yeah, she really is.
Well, get a picture of her for me next time, so I know you're not making it up.
She smiled dully.
Oh, alright. Sure.
Why have you only seen her twice? Is she really busy or something?
I don't know, I just never asked to meet her anywhere besides Lucius Lab. She just tells me the next time she's going and then I meet her there. But tomorrow, I'm gonna try to get her number so we can talk more.
Well, that's awesome, Sam. I'm glad it's working out for you.
Me too, Allie. Me too. I haven't been this happy in a while.
Allie didn't say anything for a moment.
Sam, remember when we were like 9 and you caught that walleye? It was absolutely huge.
Yeah. That thing was like 5 feet long.
And we cooked it up for supper. We just sat out there by the river all night, telling each other ghost stories and stuff. I miss that.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, that was fun. We should do something like that again sometime.
You and me? Go camping?
I was speechless.
Yeah, I mean, unless you think it'd be weird or something.
Nah, Allie. I'd totally love to do that. But wouldn't you, be busy at a party or something?
No, I won't be. Maybe next weekend?
Maybe. I'll see when Leona wants to meet next, okay?
Oh, alright, cool.
Her tone changed.
You good, Allie?
Yeah.
The rest of the night, we talked casually. I won't lie, it was awesome hearing from her again. It reminded me how much she meant to me, that even though she was different now, she was still, after all, my best friend. The next day, I excitedly drove up to Lucius Lab, blasting Led Zeppelin in my car. I couldn't believe that so many people were afraid of that place, and yet for me, it was where I was more alive than anywhere else. When I got there, this time, Leona was waiting for me. When she saw me, she ran up and hugged me. Once again, I was hit with butterflies. We talked for a while, when finally, I mustered up the courage to ask,
Hey, Leona, do you think that maybe I could get your number? Or your social media or something?
I don't have social media.
She admitted.
My dad's pretty protective, and my number?
She seemed to be debating it, but then she frowned.
I don't think it'd be a good idea. I'm sorry, Sam. Really, I wish I could.
Oh, well, I get it. Seriously, don't sweat it.
We can keep meeting here, though.
She smiled.
Okay.
I smiled back.
Well, if not that, can I get a picture of us together? Maybe this sounds creepy, but when we don't see each other for a while, I sort of wish I had at least a picture of you to look at.
Aw.
She blushed.
Sam, I just don't like taking pictures of myself.
Please, Leona.
Not today. My makeup's horrible.
No, it's not. You look great, Leona.
Sam.
She whispered. To my surprise, she extended her hand, cupping my cheek. My body was paralyzed. Her soft fingers caressed my face as her hypnotic turquoise eyes stole my breath.
I don't mean to be so dodgy. Can I make up for it with a kiss?
With what?
I stammered. She smirked. Then her eyes shut and she leaned in, pressing her soft lips against mine. I could hardly breathe, if I'm being honest. All throughout my life, I heard so much about platitudinous things like true love's kiss, fireworks, sparks, blah blah blah. But the two girls I'd ever kissed felt nothing like that. Me and Allyanne kissed in the first grade. We didn't even know what we were doing, just saw it on a TV show and tried it out. Then in 8th grade, I kissed a girl, my first girlfriend, though I didn't feel anything for her really and only agreed to date her because I thought it might be fulfilling. This kiss, however, was incomparably different. It left me spellbound, completely absorbed in the moment. It was something more than just two people's lips touching. It was It was magic. Electrical connection. I don't even want to know how cringy my expression was when she leaned back.
You kissed.
Yeah. Sorry.
She giggled.
Don't apologize. It's okay, Leona. The thing about your dad and stuff, it's okay. We'll just keep meeting here.
She looked a lot more touched by that than I would have guessed she'd be.
Yay.
She braved. For the next 2 months, we saw each other just about every weekend. Sadly, Allie and I never got around to camping. I suggested meeting up with Leona and Clover, but she reminded me that her father was the chief of police, and if a cop saw her with me, he'll tell her dad. Then, we'd probably never see each other again. Obviously not wanting to risk that, I was okay with just meeting at the lab. Still, when I was lonely, I listened to the recording I secretly taken of her while she was singing because she was too shy to outright let me film her. By the end of July, the two of us were dating. And though I don't think Ali believed me that she was real because Leona wouldn't let me take a picture of her, every time I offered Ali to come out to lose her sleep with me to meet her, she said she didn't want anything to do with that place. Though seeing Leona was awesome, she was getting increasingly depressed with every visit. She told me more and more about her controlling father and how she felt like he was suffocating her. She said that sometimes she honestly did think I was the only good thing in her life. It broke my heart, but if I'm being totally upfront, it also kind of warmed it at the same time. How could I be lucky enough to be the one who was there for her? I was so honored I could be the one to cheer her up. It was now July 18th, a Wednesday, and I was out at Loser's Leap writing a poem. That Friday, I was scheduled to meet Leona again. At around 6 o'clock, to my shock, I heard someone coming up the path. I wondered for a moment if it was Leona, but when a stranger stepped out, I instantly felt on edge.
Oh!
The woman gasped. She seemed to be in her early 30s. She was tan, with dark hair and eyes.
I'm sorry if I scared you.
I apologized.
No, my bad. I just didn't expect to see anyone up here.
Me either. So, what brings you up here?
Oh, well, does the name Cassidy Byers sound familiar to you?
Cassidy Byers? Kind of.
She committed suicide here 10 years ago. 10 years ago to the day, actually. I'm her sister.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
She sat down on a rock.
Yep. 10 years ago today, Cassidy took her life here. I guess I was just coming out here to pay my respects. After all, that grave of hers is empty. Her body was never found. So this is the real last place she ever was.
I don't know what to say. I'm just so sorry that happened.
You know, it's like they say, you learn to accept it, but you never really get over it. I could have been a much better sister to her. I really neglected her back then. I didn't realize until it was too late.
Hey,
I tried to console her, noticing she really needed someone to talk to.
it's not your fault.
Maybe not. But maybe there was something I could have done. You know? Sorry, I'm sorry.
She sighed awkwardly.
None of this is your problem. You probably just came up here to be alone.
No, it's fine. If you need to talk about anything, I've got nowhere else to be.
Well, I mean,
She was clearly troubled and couldn't hide it on her face.
What is it?
Look, I'm sorry to be dropping all this on you.
There's something the papers never published about Cassidy. And sometimes it just really bothers me.
The words made me uncomfortable.
What is it?
She used to come up here to meet somebody.
She revealed. The hair on the back of my neck stood up.
I can't remember her name now. It was so long ago. All I remember is that she would come out here to visit with someone. Said that she was her only friend. I'd always ask her why she never had her friend over, but she'd tell me her friend's dad wouldn't be okay with it or something. It never made sense to me. She kept inviting me out here to meet her, and finally, one day, after she'd left, something just didn't feel right. I decided I'd come out here to meet her friend. I got to the parking grounds and saw Cassidy's car, and walked the trail all the way up here to the leap, but...
She seemed to tremble.
What?
I asked calmly.
She was talking, but there was nobody there.
What? I whispered.
She was having a full-fledged conversation with no one.
My body was covered in goosebumps.
Yeah.
The woman nodded.
I know, I was terrified too. I thought that maybe I could hear another voice. There was definitely no one there besides Cassidy. I walked out of the tree line and Cassidy yelled, "Hey, where are you going?" Then she turned around and told me I scared her friend off. But nobody ran away. Nobody left. There was no one there besides Cassidy and me. I didn't even know what to say. I told our mom about it, but she didn't believe me. And I can't really doubt her. She was sure I just missed the girl somehow. And then sure enough, one day, Cassidy came out here to meet her friend and disappeared.
Do you think she was like, I don't know.
Crazy?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she was doing drugs. I really don't know. But with the rumors about this place and then that happening, listen, something about this place just isn't right. I know it's pretty and that out here you can get to be alone. Cassidy used to say all that stuff. But there's something evil out here. That's why Cassidy and so many other people before her took their lives here. I just know it after what I saw that day.
I'm surprised that after seeing that, you'd come out here by yourself.
Well, I'm not totally alone.
She admitted.
My husband's in the car. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, he's supposed to come up here looking for me. But I just wanted some alone time with Cassidy on the 10th anniversary of her death, or disappearance, or whatever.
Well, I'll give you some time alone. I started to walk away, but she called.
Hey, just be careful coming up here, all right?
Uh-huh. I will. Thanks.
Waves are rolling in, dark clouds start to spin, heavy in my chest. Feel the stress.
Ever since that night, losing sleep for the first time ever creeped me out. When I got home, I sat at my desk and Googled Cassidy Beyer suicide. Some articles came up, all about how she one day simply disappeared after coming out there. None of them specified her meeting a friend, except one, which included a testimony from her sister stating she'd been visiting someone on the leap. Police searched for suspects, but found nothing. The more I looked into it, the more I realized how mysterious her death was. For the first time, she didn't seem very depressed. No one really saw it coming, and then one day, she simply disappeared and it was ruled a suicide. She didn't have a lot of friends, and her family said they felt responsible for not giving her enough attention. But still, she didn't seem suicidal to anyone. Out of curiosity, I decided to look into the history of Loser Slave. A lot of the deaths were rumors, some proven untrue and others plausible, and the Native American story was folklore, impossible to validate or not. But then, I looked into Ricardo Elias's death. Something about his that confused me was that unlike the popular legend described, he wasn't cornered by law enforcement on the hill. Police simply found his body at the base of it on the riverbed and discovered that he was a draft dodger from South Florida when they eventually identified him. When his corpse turned up in the paper, numerous townspeople explained that they'd seen him around for a couple of months, and that though his mission to escape conscription was unknown to them, when he first arrived in town, he seemed to be in a hurry, and then, mysteriously, he settled down and didn't leave. He even got a job as a woodcutter, and his employer said he didn't come across as suicidal at all. Even though it was assumed the pressures of getting caught and sent to prison or Vietnam eventually drew him over the edge, he wasn't close to getting caught. He didn't show suicidal tendencies to anyone that interacted with him. And then, I looked into Mike Merkel's death in 1986. It was harder to find specific information about him, but to my shock, his story sounded similar to Cassidy's. A lot of articles detailed that he was lonely and showed signs of deep depression, but one of them explained there was a police investigation into his death being a homicide and that perhaps he was pushed. A close friend of his mentioned he'd been meeting a girl there. A girl named Leona. Police searched for Leona in Sherman and the towns nearby, but the one and only girl they met with the name didn't fit the description. A young woman with blonde hair and light eyes. When I read that, I can't describe the terror I felt. I mean, what were the odds? It couldn't be a coincidence. The article went on to say that they were dating, but Mike's friend had never met her and she only met with Mike at Loser's Lake. Just like my Leona. His story and Cassidy's story were identical to mine. I was meeting a Leona at Loser's Lake who would never meet with me anywhere else. She looked like the girl described in Mike Merkel's homicide investigation. Blonde hair with light eyes, and just like Cassidy's sister had told me, she mentioned having a controlling father that made it impossible for her to meet me anywhere else but Loser's Lake. Still, she was Leona. Leona, my girlfriend. The girl who I thought about all the time, who would sing to me and read my poetry and take my mind off my boring, pointless life. How could she be some monster? Some evil spirit or something? It couldn't be real. I would have laughed if it wasn't so painful and unnerving. On Friday, after school, I ran into Allyanne before I left to go to the forest.
Hey, weirdo.
She smiled at me, flickering her straight brown hair out of her face, her big green eyes centered on me.
You going out to your creepy little hill?
Allie, my voice carried an unusual seriousness, and I could tell she picked up on it. Listen to me. If I don't text you in 2 hours, send police to Loser's Lake. Right?
Whoa, what? Sam, what are you talking about?
I don't really know how to explain it. I'm gonna tell you all about it tonight, though, okay? Looks like you were right, though, Allie. I smiled at her. There is something wrong with Leona. I never should have doubted you.
What do you mean, Sam? You're not thinking about jumping?
Of course not. I'm not suicidal, Allie. I grabbed her shoulders, looking into her eyes. I'm not suicidal. So, if you find my body at the base of that hill, it wasn't a suicide, okay?
Sam, you're scaring me.
Allie, I hugged her. Listen, it's going to be okay, all right? I'll call you tonight. I ran off, I got in my car and drove away. She watched me the entire time until I exited the parking lot, staring at me like it was the last time she was ever going to see me. As I drove to Loser's Lane, I felt a strong mix of emotions. First and foremost was fear. I didn't believe in ghosts. I never did. But the odds. What were the odds that all the deaths will line up so precisely with my situation? It wasn't conventional at all. And on top of that, why did Ricardo and Mike and Cassidy really die? Did they kill themselves? Were they pushed? Were they manipulated into jumping? I didn't know anything. I just knew that Leona didn't make sense anymore, and neither did their deaths. And worst of all, whatever happened to them was happening to me. The next feeling, the more powerful one, was an amalgamation of sorrow and betrayal. How could my beautiful Leona be trying to kill me? Could she really be trying to hurt me? The girl I sit with and look out at the river, talking with about anything and everything for months on end, showing her my poetry, listening to her beautiful singing. It just couldn't be. Part of me felt embarrassed that this had to be all a ridiculous misunderstanding, and then another part of me even felt angry. Angry that I was being lied to. I knew how I'd find out for sure though what Leona was. If she were some spirit, or if this was all a massive asinine conspiracy theory. I pulled up to Loser's Lane. For the first time, I felt nervous stepping away from my car and into the forest. I walked up the trail that had brought me so much catharsis, excitement, and tranquility. But now, all it brought was trepidation, anxiousness, and longing. When I got to the hilltop, I could see Leona through the trees. Slowly, I took out my phone. I went to my camera and held it up. Before my eyes, Leona sat beneath the branches, her head between her arms. And on my camera was absolutely nothing. My heart froze over. I placed my phone down on the tree branch and started recording, aiming it at the hilltop. Then, I walked into the clearing. Leona looked up at me, tears streaming down her face.
Sam?
She whimpered, trudging over to me. She collapsed into my arms.
My father, he found out about me coming here. He's not letting me come back again.
Once again, I felt a turbulent mix of emotions. I was heartbroken to see her crying. I was terrified that this murderous paranormal figure was alone with me in the wilderness. And I was in love with her, wanting nothing more than to wipe her tears away and make her feel better. What do you mean? I went along with it.
He asked me where I've been.
She sniffled, her turquoise eyes red with tears, now locked with mine.
I just didn't have a cover-up anymore. He'd heard all my excuses. Sam, he's not letting me come back out here anymore. He probably has half of Clover Police Department looking for me as we speak.
What does this mean for us? She was silent for a moment.
That's it. We won't be able to see each other anymore.
Despite everything I knew, this crushed me. Leona. No.
Sam?
She sounded broken at first, when her tone changed.
Sam.
She looked up at me, a sternness in her eyes.
Let's end it. Let's kill ourselves. Together. I don't want to live without you. And what else do you have, Sam? Allyanne? Your shitty parents? Let's just die together. Hand in hand, my love.
I couldn't help but imagine Mike Merkel's standing here in her arms, tearing up beneath his glasses. Seeing Ricardo abandoning everything for love, escaping Vietnam and prison with her in his arms. Cassidy's nodding as she decided death would be better than losing her only friend. But I couldn't resist playing the act just a little longer. No matter where she was, no matter what was happening, I was in love with her. I never want to lose you, Leona.
Come on, love.
She kissed me tenderly.
Together. We'll die together.
We walked over to the ledge of Loser's Lake, looking out over the river and at the wilderness beyond. It was breathtaking, even now. Leona's warm fingers curled around mine. Then, I took a deep breath.
Is this the same thing you told Mike and Ricardo and Cassidy?
She froze. Slowly, her head turned toward me, meeting my eyes.
What?
I know, Leona. I know about their deaths. What really happened? What are you, Leona? What do you get out of this? Why do you do it?
What are you talking about, Sam?
I sighed a long, bitter sigh. Then, I shoved her off the cliff. For a moment, her body descended to the riverbed below. Then, to my complete and utter disbelief, she simply faded away into thin air, simply ceasing to exist. I stood there a while, simply looking out onto the ledge, wondering what had happened. All I could muster was that she was some sort of siren or succubus, preying on people's loneliness and feeding on their soul when they finally gave in and jumped off the edge of Loser's Lake. Perhaps she was some god that Abenaki worshipped and was simply exacting revenge on the people that had taken her people's land and so audaciously called it theirs. Who knew? One thing was certain, though. She would never condemn another soul to death again. I walked back into the tree line, grabbing my phone. The entire encounter was recorded, and though you couldn't see her, her voice was able to be heard the entire time. I brought it to the police, and they looked into it, finding no sign that I altered the footage. Even though they didn't necessarily believe me, the rumors of Loser Sleep's faceless ghost and nameless apparitions became the tale of Leona the siren who preyed on the lonely by the river. Without a doubt, if anyone started to experience what I had, they'd realize the severity of the situation they were in. At least, so I hoped. They wrote a newspaper article on it, and I knew I'd get made fun of for it. But hell, I was already the town loser. At least maybe this way, I could save a life. The rest of the summer was odd, not having my lonely perch on which to write anymore. But you know what? It was fine. Because Allyanne and I had a lot of camping and catching up to do.
This concludes our story. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.